I came to Sonoma on a mission as simple as the headline I'd already drafted for my blog: Harvest Moon's Return to Old School Grape Stomping. The idea was clickbait gold: pictures of laughing tourists knee-deep in purple pulp, a few lines about terroir and tradition, maybe a quote from the flamboyant owner, Matteo Russo, and I'd be back in San Francisco by dinner. Instead, before the sun set, Russo was dead at the bottom of a fermenting vat of Merlot, and I had purple stains on my calves and a mystery in my notebook. The day had begun innocently enough. A brass band blared Dixieland tunes beside the crush pad. The air smelled like crushed fruit, sunscreen, and the faint ozone of an approaching storm. Harvest Moon Winery sat on a knoll, its tasting room painted a shade of barn red that Instagram filters adore. A row of aluminum vats glinted in the afternoon sun, lined up like alien silos, while tourists posed for selfies against them. Russo greeted everyone himself. He wore a snowy linen shirt half open, exposing a sun-toughened chest, and a straw hat with a blue ribbon that matched his eyes. His voice carried over the music. "Remember, folks, stomping is art and rhythm. To the beat, to the beat." He spotted me and charged forward. "Lenny Clark, the nose behind Uncorked and Unfiltered. You honor my estate. You must stomp. The internet has to see those city feet work." I smiled, flicked on the video function of my phone, and let Russo usher me toward the shallow redwood bins piled waist-high with clusters of plump Merlot grapes. Beside me climbed Harper Lee, the winery's marketing director, freckles, blonde braid, determined smile. Across from us, Garrett Sullivan, assistant winemaker, built like a linebacker in coveralls. Marisol Vega, Russo's stepdaughter, all confidence and cheekbones, and a pepper-grey older man I recognized as Claude Dumont, French vintner turned investor, whose labels usually sold at 3 times Harvest Moon's price. Russo cracked a joke about the Franco-Californian entente and dropped the bullhorn. A drum roll from the band, a countdown, and we started stomping. Juice squelched up between my toes, cool and sugary, proof that I need stronger gym calves. Harper laughed, playfully splashing me. Cameras clicked, tourists cheered. Russo prowled the rim like a boxing coach, shouting pointers. Even while laughing, I kept my reviewer's nose working. The young juice smelled clean, black cherry and a whisper of sage carried by the breeze. Not a hint of stress rot. The 2023 vintage, I thought, might deserve the hype Russo had been hawking. After 15 exuberant minutes, a whistle blew. Volunteers helped us hose off near the press. Russo raised a glass of last year's reserve Merlot. "To messy feet and clean palates." We drank, and I slipped away to jot tasting notes. Pepper, cassis, anise, respectable oak balance. Good, not mind-blowing, but blog-worthy. By 4 o'clock, clouds stacked over the hills like hammered pewter. Most visitors drifted toward the tasting room, chasing another pour before the inevitable sprinkle. I went hunting for Russo, needed a pull quote about returning to human touch in winemaking. I found Garrett instead, hunched over the control panel of the largest fermenter, the one filled to the brim with freshly crushed Merlot. He muttered, adjusting valves. "Temperatures climbing fast, yeast already partying." "Seen Matteo?" I asked. Garrett didn't look up. Around somewhere charming wallets. His tone held the flinty edge of someone underappreciated. I left him and aimed for the barrel hall. The cavernous space was cool and dim, vanilla-scented from oak. Somewhere deeper, I heard voices, Russo's tenor and Marisol's contralto volleying like fencers. I crept closer. "Put more of the estate up as collateral," Marisol was saying. You promised you wouldn't gamble again. It's called expansion, Rousseau replied. In today's market you scale or you die. And if the harvest tanks, you'll drown us in debt, Matteo. Leave business to me, querida. Footfalls approached. I stepped back, pretended to study a cask. Marisol stormed past, cheeks flushed. Rousseau emerged seconds later, ran a hand through his curls, and plastered on his public grin. It faltered when he saw me, but he recovered. Ah, Blogger Clark, come, the best view is from the catwalk. The catwalk ran above the stainless steel vat array. We climbed the yellow steps. From up there, the vineyard rolled under the moody sky, rose like green corduroy, edges glowing where sun-pierced clouds. Rousseau leaned on the railing. You feel it, Lenny? The pulse. Great wine, it's a heartbeat. Risk, reward. You've bottled plenty of both, I said. Heard you're betting big this season. He laughed too quickly. Rumours. The only thing I wager on is flavour. Thunder grumbled. The first splatter of rain speckled the catwalk. Get under cover, my friend, Rousseau said. I must check a pump issue, but meet me in the library in 20 and we'll taste the hidden gems. I descended, shaking water from my lens. As I headed toward the tasting room, Claude Dumont intercepted me, smelling faintly of cigarillo. Such passion he has, yes? But passion without prudence. He blew air through pursed lips. Boom. Sounds like you have thoughts about Harvest Moon's direction, I said. Claude shrugged. I own 15%, enough to care, not enough to control. We all have thoughts, monsieur. His eyes drifted to the storm-dark vats. Sometimes the wine decides. Inside the tasting room, Harper poured flights for the lingering tourists. She offered me a glass of rosé, pale as dawn. I accepted and asked, is Matteo always so kinetic? Adrenaline in human form, she said. But lately it's like someone turned the dial to 11. Bankers, investors, expansion talk. Honestly, I just try to keep the brand shiny. Garrett seems stressed too. She twisted the stem of her glass. Matteo pushes him hard, and Garrett hates shortcuts. You hear about the enzyme incident? No. Matteo ordered a blending enzyme to speed up extraction. Garrett said it messed with mouthfeel. They almost came to blows. Storm clouds broke open. Rain hammered the roof like spilled buckshot. Guests clustered around window panes, filming the deluge. Thunder boomed overhead, masking a sharper sound, metallic, hollow, then a splash. A woman screamed. We all followed the shriek onto the crush pad. Garrett stood by the large fermenter, face the colour of chalk pointing. The safety grate that usually covered the vat's opening lay crooked on the floor. Floating in the frothing purple, arms splayed, straw hat bobbing beside him, was Matteo Rousseau. Chaos unfurled. Marisol sprinted up the steps, crying out. Garrett and I grabbed the ladder fixed to the vat's side, clambered up, then into the cold soup of grape skins and juice. It was thick like half-set gelatin, impossible to see more than inches. Garrett reached Rousseau first, fumbled for a pulse, shook his head. We hauled the body to the rim where farmhands helped lift him out. CPR attempts stained shirts crimson, but changed nothing. Sheriff's deputies arrived within half an hour. Rain eased to a mist. Yellow tape wrapped the pad. We witnesses gathered under an awning, shivering and dripping. Deputy Sarah Kim took our statements, while an ambulance crew zipped Rousseau into a black bag smeared Cabernet deep. Beside me, Marisol clutched a soaked tissue. Claude Dumont whispered a prayer in French. Garrett stared at his purple hands, flexing them like he feared the colour might seep deeper. When my turn came, Deputy Kim recognized me. The wine blogger, right? Saw your write-up on the barrel bash last year. Glad someone reads me, I said, then relayed events. Mid-sentence, my palate triggered on a stray detail. A faint odour in the air near the vat when we pulled Rousseau out. Not just grape must. Something sharper, medicinal. I filed it away. Kim finished notes. Right now, accidental fall is on the table, but the medical examiner will tell us more. I nodded, though suspicion already bubbled. Rousseau was nimble. The safety grate had to be unhooked, slid aside. Hard to imagine it simply collapsing under him. And there was the smell, like hospital disinfectant mingled with berries. Hotels in wine country fill fast after storms drive tourists toward fireplaces. I ended up back at the winery. Harper offered the guest casita, a clapboard cottage near the olive grove. A deputy remained on patrol, cruiser idling at the gate. Inside the cottage I showered, scrubbing grape skins from unmentionable places, then opened my laptop. The blog headline I'd planned felt obscene now. I typed a blank page instead. When wine turns fatal. Around 9, a soft knock. Harper stood in the doorway with a bottle and 2 glasses. "House Merlot," she said. "Figured you could use company." We sat at the small pine table. Rain ticked at the windows. The wine tasted like dark chocolate and regret. Harper's eyes were red-rimmed. "Garrett blames himself," she whispered. "He left the vat to cool automatically. The control panel logged him out at 3:58. They found Matteo at 4:15. He was alive at 4, I said. I spoke to him on the catwalk. She swallowed. So 15 minutes. Someone knew Garrett wasn't watching. Lightning flashed, backlighting Harper's silhouette. Something clicked in my memory, the argument in the barrel hall. How bad were Matteo's finances? She sighed. A mess. Expansion loans, new vineyard acreage, luxury cans project, don't laugh, plus a payout to cover his ex-wife's medical bills. If the 2023 vintage bombed, he'd lose the estate. Claude threatened to invoke a debt clause. An angle surfaced. Life insurance? 8 million, naming Marisol as beneficiary. But she can't touch it if the death is ruled suicide. Only accident or homicide. So if you're the beneficiary, and you know that clause. Harper held up a hand. Marisol loved Matteo. She wouldn't. I sipped, thinking. Another memory nudged, Garrett muttering about a temperature. A ferment that hot could produce more carbon dioxide than normal, enough gas to knock someone unconscious over the open vat. Combine that with the medicinal smell, sulfur dioxide solution maybe, used to sanitize tanks, lethal in high concentration. If someone dosed the must with SO2 while Matteo leaned in. At dawn, I walked to the pad. Deputies had gone, leaving tape fluttering. The stainless vat loomed like a monument. I climbed the ladder. The grate had been reattached, but a corner bent upward slightly. The control panel display flashed idle numbers. I opened the maintenance log, entries time-stamped. 3:53 p.m, pump purge complete. 3:58 user logout, G. Sullivan. 4:04 manual override, user unknown. 4:05 SO2 inject, 2-second burst. I photographed the screen. A whiff of residual sulfur lingered. Footsteps clanged. Garrett appeared below, eyes sunken. You're not supposed to be up there. Curiosity's a chronic condition, I said, descending. Someone triggered an SO2 shot at 4:05. He tensed. The system logs glitches sometimes. Or murders. I softened my tone. I know you tried to protect the wine from shortcuts. Did Matteo threaten your job? Garrett exhaled. He said if I couldn't handle the pace, he'd bring in consultants. But I'd never hurt him, I swear. Can anyone else access the panel? He rubbed his neck. Matteo, me and Harper have codes. Claude asked for one, but Matteo refused. Said the French already ran enough of his life. What about Marisol? Not officially. I thanked him and headed for the manor house. Fog drifted around trellises like spilled milk. In the library's leaded windows, a lamp glowed. I knocked. Marisol answered in a silk robe, eyes swollen. I'm sorry, I said. I wouldn't intrude, but I have questions about the life insurance. She stiffened. The sheriff already asked. I'm not the sheriff. I'm the guy who heard you and Matteo arguing. He was planning a big risk. You were scared. If he died accidentally, you'd inherit enough to save the winery. Tears welled. You think I killed my stepfather? I think motives float like lees. They settle if unstirred. Help me stir. She sank into an armchair. Matteo raised me since I was 10. He bailed my mother out of one disaster after another. He taught me to smell coffee grounds between barrel samples to reset my nose. I wanted him alive. Then who wanted him dead? She hesitated. Claude. He pressed Matteo to sell controlling shares. If Matteo defaulted, Claude could buy cheap. With Matteo gone, the board may vote to sell. Claude wins either way. I left her sobbing softly and trekked to the guest parking lot, where luxury SUVs gleamed with dew. Claude's rental Mercedes sat alone. I crouched by the rear wheel, pretending to tie a shoe, and caught it, the tang of sulphur clinging to the undercarriage vents. Interesting. A throat cleared. Claude stood behind me, umbrella tilted. Inspecting German engineering. Just admiring, I said. Long night. He blew smoke. Police asked many questions. Tragic accident, no? But business must continue. Harvest waits for no man. And investments don't either. He smiled thinly. Rousseau said, the money you have gives you freedom. The money you pursue enslaves you. Let us hope Matteo finds freedom in the beyond. As he strolled off, I noticed purple stains along the cuff of his linen pants, higher than a casual splash, up to mid-calf, like someone who had waded into a vat. At noon, Deputy Kim summoned all Corps staff to the barrel hall. Results from the coroner had come. Cause of death. Drowning facilitated by acute sulfur dioxide inhalation. Kim eyed us. We're treating this as homicide. The SO2 came from an automated inject at 4:05 p.m., user code Harper Lee. Gasps erupted. Harper's glass shattered on the floor. No, my code's 221B. Easy to guess because I'm a Sherlock nerd. Anyone could punch it. Claude raised palms. Why would we? Kim continued. Security camera at the crush pad was offline due to storm, but a vineyard cam caught someone crossing from the equipment shed to the vat at 4:03. Hard to see under hood and rain, but height approximates 5'10". My blogger instinct kicked. Garrett was over 6 foot, Claude 5'7", Harper barely 5'4". Marisol and I matched 5'10", but I'd been inside the tasting room at that moment. Marisol, Kim added. Deputies found sulfur residue in the shed and on a pair of coveralls belonging to Mr. Sullivan. Garrett paled. I haven't used that shed since pruning season. Claude murmured something about tragic betrayals. Harper wept. Marisol glared at Garrett, fury and confusion dueling. Kim asked if anyone could confirm Garrett's location between 4 and 4:15. Harper spoke. He was with me in the lab until just before 4. Then I went to set up a tasting flight. I don't know after. Garrett managed. I checked the fermenter and went inside for a minute. That's it. Kim nodded, distributed orders not to leave county lines, and dismissed us. I tugged her aside. The code issue and camera outage feel staged. May I nose around? Unofficially? Fine, but share anything you sniff. She almost smiled at the pun. The storm had cleared, leaving skies scrubbed blue. I revisited the equipment shed. Dusty hoses, spare valves, chemical drums. On a workbench sat a half-empty bottle of hospital-grade sanitizer, SO2 solution. Next to it lay a torn scrap of paper, 221B scrawled and underlined. Too neat, too planted. Near the door, muddy tracks. I snapped photos, measured the stride, shorter than Garrett's. Drops of reddish liquid beaded one print. I touched a finger, sniffed. Not wine. Blood? I followed the trail outside, through gravel toward the olive grove. Under a tree, orange petals littered earth. Marigolds. A small cut on Marisol's palm earlier. She'd wiped it on her robe when we spoke. But these prints were small. Harper? A voice cut in. Playing detective again, Clark? Harper approached, arms crossed, trying to keep the story straight. I pointed to the prints. Know whose shoes? She bent, frowning. Size 8, maybe. Not mine. Lightning, metaphorical, struck. I recalled Claude's stained cuff. He wore loafers maybe size 8. But blood? Where would he cut himself? I hurried to the Mercedes. No one around. I opened the unlocked driver door, popped the trunk. Inside, among suitcases, lay a damp towel, purple-black, and a rolled set of coveralls, Harvest Moon issue, name patch ripped off. A small tear at the ankle showed a smear of coagulated blood. Hands where I can see them, Deputy Kim said behind me, weapon holstered but palm on grip. I explained, showed her the evidence. We rode a cruiser to Claude's B&B. He answered in a robe, feigning indignation until Kim produced a warrant. In his bathroom trash we found surgical gloves dusted with grape skins and trace of sanitizer. Back in the interrogation room, under Kim's steely gaze, Claude folded faster than cheap cardboard. The motive, Mateo's refusal to cede majority control. Claude's holdings were leveraged. He needed the winery's assets to shore up debts back in Bordeaux. He'd learned of the life insurance. If Mateo died accidentally, payouts would cover the estate's loans, putting Claude in prime position to buy the controlling interest from a grateful cash-liquid Marisol. So he staged an accident, used Harper's easy code, donned coveralls, injected SO2 to stun Mateo, yanked the grate, and shoved him in. He picked yesterday because storm noise masked sounds and tourists' foot traffic provided confusion. The cut. He'd sliced his ankle climbing the vat ladder, leaving blood in the shed where he'd changed. Why drown him? I asked during a break. Claude's gaze was lifeless. Winemakers die by their art. Poetic, no? Garrett was cleared, Harper vindicated, Marisol freed from suspicion, though not from grief. Insurance investigators would haggle, but Claude's shares were forfeit. The board appointed Marisol interim CEO with Garrett as head winemaker, Harper retaining marketing. 2 evenings later, under a candle-lit pergola overlooking vines still glittering from the rain, we gathered for a quiet toast. Marisol poured the last bottle of Mateo's favourite vintage, the 2016 Merlot he called Blood Moon. She raised her glass. To Mateo, who taught us to chase flavour, not fortune. We drank. The wine had opened beautifully. Ripe plum, eucalyptus, a finish like velvet dusk. I closed my eyes, savouring layers. Harper nudged me. Will you write it up? I will, I said, swirling the liquid, watching the legs slide down the glass. A story about passion, peril, and palate. But first, I'll just taste. The valley breathed night fragrances, wet earth, crushed leaves, distant storm ghosts. Somewhere a barn owl hooted, and in my mouth, The Merlot hummed a last lingering note that felt like both an elegy and a beginning.